Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I am Sean Butler. Bugsy Malone is downstairs. We've already had her out this morning. It's still early here, but it was very early for her because, it's too hot. It's ridiculous. I hope you're all happy and healthy, doing the things that you love with those you love to do them with. Please do me a favor, guys. Smash the granny out of the like button if you don't mind. If you enjoy these here videos, hit the subscribe if you haven't already. We just got past 33K. Massive shout out to all of you guys that have made that possible. Really excited to see. If my hair ever grows back is what I was about to say, something different, but I've just caught a glimpse of the thinness. It is what it is. Hit the notification bell and drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on today's topics. This might be one of several videos today, so if you watch this one, do make sure you pop back within the next sort of couple of hours, because there might be a second one. Then there'll be a live stream later on. We got transfer news, views, and clues to get through throughout the day, but before that, we got a transfer takeover talk from Football Insider, the football finance expert Stefan Borson, who has suggested, well, you know what, I'm not going to spoil the surprise for you, or maybe I will do in the title, because you know what, you call me clickbait all day long, and it's not very nice, but it is what it is. Let's talk this one. Football Insider are saying this one's by Stefan Borson. He's one of these guys that likes to call themselves a football expert, football finance expert in the third person. This guy probably is a football finance expert. I like the Dr. Plumley we spoke about last week, didn't we? Tottenham have been looking to agree a takeover deal for some time as they aim to secure new investment. Football Insider revealed on the 5th of June, Tottenham are edging closer to agreeing a deal to sell a stake in the club, valuing them at around £5 billion. Spurs are open to the investment. That's my foot. That's my train there. With Qatari investors, ex-Newcastle United chief Amanda Staveley and US-based MSP Sports Capital among those linked with acquiring a minority stake in recent months. The North London club have been in talks with various consortiums for more than a year, and progress is believed to have been made behind the scenes in the last few weeks. Finance expert Borson exclusively told Football Insider it would likely need to be a full takeover for a £5 billion valuation to be realistic. An independent value by Forbes recently valued Tottenham at £2.44 billion. That's without the debt attached to it, by the way, which is about £800 million. While Real Madrid are the most valuable club in the world at £5 billion, give or take. Spurs' latest accounts for the 23-24 season revealed their turnover fell from £549.6 million in 2022-23 to 528.2 last year. Now, that was about a 4.5% fall. But remember, we had a significant fall in match day events at the stadium. I think it was the fewest games in the history of the Premier League for Tottenham Hotspur, no European football, etc. It really wasn't a pretty season last year. Next season, we're expecting record revenues well over the £600 million mark, not only because of the Champions League qualification, the additional match day receipts from there, but obviously the non-match day is up through the roof as well. Sure, commercial will continue to rise, and sponsorship deals, well, they are always doing and looking better when you are playing against the best in the best competitions. So we shall see. We won't find out about those numbers, though, until probably February or March of 2027. So it's a long time away. But in any event, valuations on clubs are not just baked in on last year's earnings, even though last year, relative to how poor a season it was compared to the season before, when we were playing in the Champions League, we got to the last 16. And we tried to hold on to a 1-0 deficit in the second leg against AC Milan. But the two sort of chalk and cheese comparisons, more games the season before at the highest level, the following season, the fewest games ever. And we only dropped our overall revenue number by 5%. That was because of the increase in non-match day events. And so Daniel Levy doing his thing to keep our heads above water. ENIC told to lower Tottenham valuation. Borson insisted, though, that Tottenham's majority owners' ENIC valuation doesn't match where the market is currently at for investment. He told Football Insider if they were to get a deal done at £5 billion, it would establish it at the very pinnacle of football evaluations. I think it's highly unlikely. It's kind of just about believable if it were for the entire thing, in that it got control. But for a minority stake, then it's even more unlikely. I don't believe the £5 billion. So I think what he's sort of aiming at there is that, like, not a try before you buy, but like a somewhat investment stake. Obviously doesn't give you full control, doesn't give you full power, full autonomy to do what you want to do. And obviously if the valuation is above and punching above expectations, punching above reality anyway, then those things are baking in all of the future revenue growth that might come from areas like Netflix for sport, that we've spoken about many, many times when the Sky broadcasting deal eventually subsides, any potential future, Super League, all of the various other opportunities that present themselves in the future. Well, if you don't have full controlling stake, then as you move into the future and the timelines sort of head towards those eventualities, then the valuation of the club goes with it. And so eventually you'll be paying more. So he's kind of leaning into the fact that if you're going to pay a punchy valuation now for future revenue potential earnings, then you have to receive those things in full control before those things become reality. It makes sense to me. Guys, before we get any further, I have already asked you to smash the like button and hit the subscribe. But if you are someone that prefers, maybe you're at work, maybe watching this on YouTube isn't ideal if you have to have the app open on your phone. And if you want to do it via Spotify or other podcast things, then you can obviously listen to it in the background without the app necessarily being open. You can do that by clicking in the link at the bottom in the description there. My Spotify link is open, and this will very soon be on Apple Pods as well. It's already on Amazon and Spotify. Please get over there and smash those follows if you prefer that format. Let's continue. We know that they've been looking for a long time for external investment or a sale. That's been touted for literally years and admitted as much by Spurs. If you had to look at not their last report on their accounts, but the one before, they specifically said that they were in the process to try and find an investor or a third-party buyer. It's no secret they've been looking, but it's been a long time that they've been looking, and that does suggest that their expectation of value doesn't match where the market is. I don't see that the signs are there for increased valuations above and beyond the sort of multiples that Chelsea got when that was when that was sold. Just quickly, I completely agree with Stefan Borst on this one. I do think that whilst people are baking into valuations potential future movements, you have to leave some for the next guy. You can't bake in 100% price perfection on future revenues and not leave anything for the next guy to make any money. That doesn't make any sense. The timelines for getting these investments have been extended. It's most other clubs that are looking for sort of investment have found it in the past relatively quickly. And one of the kind of the stumbling blocks here is around Daniel Levy's, I think, his a willingness in negotiations, and we see it all day long with his the struggles we've seen over the years for his transfer negotiations. It feels to me like he is a personality who sees negotiations as a battle, a zero-sum game where someone has to win and someone has to lose. And if there were situations and scenarios where someone has said, okay, I'll meet your price for whatever, for the player or for a stake in the club, then maybe his instinct and his sort of gut reaction is that everyone must have the same relationship with money and value as I do. Therefore, if someone's okay, then I'm not obviously factoring everything in, and they're by them being okay with any particular negotiation, then I must be leaving some on the table, and that's unacceptable to the way I treat business. And I've said it 1,000 times. His ambition as a manager, as an owner of a football club, doesn't necessarily suit what we're trying to achieve, given the competition and the ambitions and the kind of relationships with money that some of our competitors have. So it'd be nice to see if those things were to change under this new vision, this new board that we have, that where Vinny is taking over control of the day-to-day operations, according to what they said in their video release the day before yesterday. On top of that, though, he did also say that all major decisions they'll be joined at the hip at for with regards on-field matters. Now, off-field matters, obviously Vinny, I do, but I think he's got a place on the board and he had a voting right. But whether or not he is, he's going to have that sway, as much sway as, say, Peter Charrington has come in. And why did Charrington come in the first place? Well, look, that's open to interpretation. We've been speaking a lot on this channel with Johnny and myself around what does that look like? Obviously, going all the way back to December when Tottenham invested some new money. I think it was 32 million pound in a share issue. That, to me, was the first demonstration that something was percolating behind the scenes. Then there was the apparent NDAs that Amanda Staveley had signed. I think that was in January. Then with Charrington coming in March, Vinny being appointed shortly after in April, and then Donna Cullen leaving last month, it kind of is all pointing in the direction that things are certainly percolating, especially with the fact that Charrington's relationship in the Bahamas with the Lewis family is certainly quite strong. And so, without access to the inside track here, obviously everything's NDA'd, everything at boardroom level won't get into the hands of anyone. Then we're left to speculate. And part of the speculation where my sort of thought experiments go is, it was Daniel Levy sort of taking a little bit of a backward step, but it doesn't look like that from the latest video. He might be handing over a little bit of the kind of the visual control to Vinny, but they did say from the horse's mouth that there will be absolute alignment on the various sort of the big decisions that have to take place both on the field and off it. But it's an exciting time. However, what I would say is if there is truth to this, that the £5 billion is the valuation, then I would agree that it's too much. And look, I think that there is another angle here. I very much doubt that Tottenham Hotspur will ever take it. I think that they walked away from the idea of stock market ownership. Tottenham used to be listed on the alternative investment market for many years. And, Daniel Levy and ENIC, sort of took the club private. There are still minority shareholders. I think about 20,000 minority shareholders that, add up to somewhere, 18%. I could be wrong on the specifics. I don't have it in front of me. And obviously they do that because they wanted full control. But if they are now looking for a partial sale and injection of capital, now I believe that some of the other things that are being spoken about right now with the BBC Sport News, that there are substantial budgets that are available, with Daniel Levy saying, at this crucial time in the summer, the very start of a transfer window, following on from the Europa League win, saying something he's never said before, which is what Tottenham fans have always asked for. What are your ambitions? Please state them so that we know. And he said the ambitions are to win the Premier League and to win the Champions League. Well, Daniel and Vinny, if you're saying those things out loud, you will be held accountable for saying those things. And you now need to back that up with at least this summer needs to be a monster transfer window, especially when you look at all of the other teams around us that are going to be the blocks on your ability to do those things within the Premier League specifically, and the ambitions that are being so far demonstrated by Manchester United, by Chelsea, by Liverpool. Liverpool spent £250 million already, and we're not even in the first week of the main transfer window. Manchester City has spent £500 million since the summer, since January. Arsenal are about to drop a couple of bombers. As I say, Chelsea are moving and making waves as well. Newcastle United, well, they're waiting for their chance, and we don't know what's going to happen with Aston Villa. But ultimately, if the ambitions, the vocalized ambitions of the football club are to compete and win for the Premier League and the Champions League, then talk is cheap. Let's walk the walk now. In order to do that, you have to have the budgets. And for them to say that at such a crucial time suggests to me that there is more than just kind of talk around that these takeovers or the cash injection. Maybe it's already been agreed, confirmed, and it just hasn't been announced yet for whatever reason, the NDAs, the formalization process. But the assumption here is that there is enough money. Otherwise, why would Daniel Levy say it now? And the only kind of the other angle here is that maybe he's just seizing the moment to say something to try to get the fans on side, like he did when we were 10 games into the Ange Postecoglou season. And he said, we've got our Tottenham back. Well, we didn't really get our Tottenham back from that point on in the league, at least. But maybe he's just seizing the moment and taking the opportunity to get, to say some positive things without the intention to back it up. Time will tell. But when you say those things, you're going to be held accountable. And maybe the investment is already there. There is, of course, the option that that's not the case, and that Stefan Borsten is saying these things are taking too long. It is weird. It is wild. And it comes down to that valuation. Now, if it is $5 billion and Stefan Borsten is saying, the market doesn't match those ambitious valuations. And as I say, there is always a way to know what the market really thinks. And that is to pivot back towards a stock market option. I'm not saying it will happen. I think it's entirely unlikely. But if you don't think that the potential investors are seeing the true valuation in which Daniel Levy does, and he genuinely thinks the company's worth £5 billion, well, the best way to tell that is to put your money where your mouth is. And that's what happens in the stock market. People that have opinions on stocks and shares, they have to put their money where their mouth is and buy the stock, sell the stock, whatever, and then see whether they were right or wrong. And in the case of IPOs, then there's an easy way to know where the true valuation is, whether it's closer to the Forbes level or whether it's closer to the level that Daniel Levy believes is real. And they can sort of get literally immediate access to capital if that's what they want. And they can hand over the reins to micro shareholders or major shareholders, banks, investment funds, hedge funds, etc. It will be interesting to see. I don't believe for a second that will happen, but I'm saying that if there is this continuous blockade here because there's just a mismatch in valuations, then the easiest way to know whether you were right or you were wrong is to go into an IPO and see what happened. But the fact that Tottenham moved away from that years ago would suggest that that's not the way that they go for. Just to finish off this story, I don't see that the signs are there for increased valuations above and beyond the sort of multiples that Chelsea got. Sorry, I've already said that sentence. Now, other ways, in terms of a potential exit, Football Insider revealed on the 10th of June that the Heung Min son will likely be an exit. Now, listen, there is, of course, if that's the intention here, if Daniel Levy has had conversations with Heung Min's son, apparently a couple of days ago, those two were going to sit down with Thomas Frank and have conversations about his future. maybe there's decent money that can be available there. Maybe Daniel Levy is baking into his plans to be ambitious this summer that he's going to raise a certain level of money through players like Christian Romero's sale, if it's true that he still wants to leave and he can't be convinced to stay. And to be entirely honest, after what he's done with his inferences and his words about our owner or about our board, excuse me, for the second time in a few months, and also with regards a little slide dig inferencing here about our medical team, he might have a point, but a leader of the team shouldn't be saying that sort of stuff, especially with the timing of it. I thought it was outrageous. So whilst I love the player when he's on, he's not really on as much as he could be. He's a 50% of minutes guy. And if he's not pulling in the same direction as the club and he's taken the moment to have little digs and stabs at the board, he's not someone that I think is captain-like. And I think that there are players out there that you could replace him with that maybe are more bought in, that are more available, that maybe don't quite have the same levels of capability as him just yet, but that they could find their way into those kind of conversations around top draw centre-backs into the future. And if it doesn't have to cost you the entire budget that you would raise from selling Romero, then that sort of leftover change can go towards the additional budget that could go with the Sonny money, could go with maybe the Manuel Solomon money, maybe the Richalison money, maybe the Bissouma money, maybe the Bentancur money, if it's still true that we haven't necessarily locked him down to a new contract yet, and put together a healthy budget with whatever was available. And remember, guys, that the Matisse Tell deal, even though that might have frustrated a lot of people, that deal was essentially agreed on the day before the transfer deadline day in January, last window. And the day after that, Tottenham put together a £70 million bid allegedly for Mark Gahey. And that was without knowing whether we were going to be in the Champions League next season. And I would imagine that most forecasting by the football club didn't baked in a sort of 20% chance that we would have had Champions League money because of the rarity of Tottenham winning trophies, the rarity of anybody winning a European trophy. And so if you had enough money to bid for Mark Gahey on deadline day in January, that money hasn't vanished. If the money for Matisse Tell was already earmarked before that, and we have subsequently got a discount on that, then whatever that change was adding to the pot. And now, if you include Sonny selling out all the other guys, plus whatever the budgets would have been from the Champions League, then I still remain firm on my position that Tottenham Hotspur really have no excuse to let us down this window in the ambition of signing the best players. Now, you can't always guarantee that these players will want to come, but the money to pay for them in terms of wiggle room on the wage structure and, of course, wiggle room within the transfer budgets, it should be there. And Daniel Levy, it's a Carpe Diem moment for you, my friend, because you've come out and said it now. Thomas Frank has said wonderful things in his video last night. Vinny said impressive things as well. The money should be there. The intention apparently is there. The ambition we're hoping to see, whether the money from the sale or takeover will come now or it's imminent or otherwise, well, we shall see about that one. But for me, as I say, everything is pointing into the right direction. And if we don't take the opportunity now, and as I said back in March and April, when we kind of knew we were getting towards the semi-finals and the final, that it is a sliding doors moment at the time for this football club, because if you don't spend the money, if you don't reinvest, if you don't get those trading transfers right, correct, and give everything that Thomas Frank needs to be able to compete next season, then we might be getting left behind, because it does feel like there was a changing of the guard a little bit, or at least an increase in the amount of relevant, serious competition to get hold of those 4 Champions League spots that are guaranteed, 5 if the English outperformance in Europe continues. Then for me, Tottenham Hotspur could get left behind, because the dependence and the reliability on Champions League money is already fading. And if we do not improve this squad now, then for me, I think that we will continue to fade and to continue to struggle. And then after that, it's likely a long road back for the next decade. But that's the story, guys. I'll leave it there. But there is more videos coming. There's a transfer news, views, and clues video coming not too far away from this one. So come back to the channel throughout the day and you'll see lots of new content. Like, subscribe, and comment. Let me know your thoughts. And as always, bye.